Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you guys here on this September 30th, a Wednesday, September 30th, 2020. Welcome to the show. Now listen, I put in a little video in the description that it's kind of like tongue-in-cheek humor about the two-party system. And it just kind of struck me funny is people, if you haven't got a good what choice do you have? You have two choices, and I'm just not into the two-party system anymore. I'd like there to be like 10 different parties, and you have a wider variety. Okay, it's like apples and oranges. You got your choice for breakfast this morning. You got apples or oranges. Well, I want pineapple. Anyway, let's get started with the show, and let's turn the charts on right here and take a look at what's going on in the world. First thing we're going to take a look at is the silver price. 23.69. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, hey, it's kind of like something big is in the works, really big and monstrously big, and is it a stock market crash? Is it some sort of trouble surrounding the elections? Something big is going on, and leading into something big, and just the way I don't think a U.S. election's ever been done like this before. In this kind of a situation, where there's a pandemic and stuff. I don't think it's ever happened. And I know for sure it's never happened before. And it's just kind of like a strange situation that we're in right now. Anyway, we're looking at a silver price right now. It's down 48 cents, 23.69 on the day, but it's in the center of its range. And we're going to take a look at the gold price here. 18.92. Now, the gold price is up a little bit higher in its range than the silver price. I think we're at really, a lot of people are thinking to themselves that this market is like had its big up and now it's getting ready to, I don't think so. I think we're just at the beginning of this actual bull run, because this is the only real value behind the world's financial system is gold and silver and oil. Everything else is fluff. Everything else is just feathers. This is the anvil. The anvil, the solidity behind the world's financial system. And these prices, they can barely, really, it's just not much even for the miners to get the silver and gold out of the ground at these prices. It's difficult, gold I think costs like $1,200 or $1,400 or something, depending on the mine you go to, just to get it out of the ground and get it into that coin form that you buy it, or bar form. And the same thing with silver, the all-in costs for them to get it out of to mine it out and to get it into a coin or a bar, you're looking at probably about $14 or something like that, There's not a whole lot of headway there between that and the price. But, they were right down on the mining production cost price a while ago. Now, it's up a little bit. But, the mines, they have the same problem with this COVID thing inside the mines and stuff. They can't let the miners get too close together. They have to, it's just the same like when you go to a grocery store or you go anywhere you go now. You go to a restaurant. Well, they're only at like 30 or 40% capacity or something, You say, well, the restaurant's full, it's packed. No, it's not packed. It used to be packed back when they could pack them in like sardines. Now they got to have all these separating distances and everything, all this craziness, and it's just like the restaurant, he's only running at 30% capacity even though he's packed, and there's a line up at the door. It's a crazy world we're in now. Anyway, cryptocurrency today, 346 billion, 57.6% Bitcoin dominance. We're looking at a Bitcoin price of 10,774. They used to talk about cryptocurrency, how unstable it is, how the price can go down massively one day and way up the next day. Lately, the past number of months, while they haven't been looking, cryptocurrency is becoming one of your more stable assets. It doesn't move that much. Yeah, it might move between $10,400 and $11,000 in that range, but it's been just staying there, fairly static. maybe all of the volatility's going out of it. Maybe that's going to become in the end a thing of the past, ultimately when Bitcoin gets really where it's going, It might be the most stable asset in the world. It could become, I say, the most stable asset. Let's take a look at the Dow Jones today. 502 points up. This is not sustainable. By any means, this is not sustainable. And, if they were to let the Dow go, just let it go and don't do anything, no stimulus, no help from the Fed, nothing, just let it stand on its own, it would fall on its own. And, because it's all been pumped up with all this fluff, I call it fluff. It's like a bunch of feathers, there's no real substance to all of these constantly creating money through debt, expanding the monetary supply, but it's all debt. And it's all leveraged, ultimately, if you were to take all of that away and let the market find true market value right now, it would just keep going down. I figure it would go all the way down probably at least to 5,000, but maybe even 3,000. If you just let it all fall. Like, that's where the bottom would be. And I mean, but you can imagine what the world would look like if we had a 3,000 Dow right now, if it went down that low. You talk about poverty, talk about people on the streets and everything else. But it's getting ridiculous now, and I can't tell you how fast the homeless population is growing right now. But it's doing exactly what I predicted years ago. I mean, it's like 2 years ago I was predicting that the homeless population would explode when the crisis hits. I also predicted that they would make actual homeless cities, whole cities. Now I can see it's actually happening, and I was being conservative. I was being conservative compared to what's coming. And, I was watching a show last night with the homeless people on it and everything, and I was just thinking to myself, all of a sudden, it's almost like they're leaving the system, like they're unzipping from the system. So they hop in their truck or whatever they have. Maybe they got an old car and they're going to live in that, and they go out in the middle of nowhere to a place where there's a whole bunch of other homeless people in there, and it's almost like they disappear from the system to a certain degree, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have a physical address anymore. It's like they've been uprooted, and it's like now they're just disconnected from the world grid, to a certain degree. Okay, they might have a cell phone, or they might not, or whatever, but they're out there, and they're like, it's like that side of the fence is like growing really fast. There's going to be, I think there's actually going to be maybe in a year from now, there might be 2-3 million homeless in the United States, where it just went from a few thousand, all of a sudden it's just going to explode, and they're going to have places, they're going to have cities and stuff they're going to build. And what are their cities going to look like? Well, whatever they can find to drag over, an old tarpaulin, a crate, and they lean it up against something, and they build like a little house for themselves. And whatever they have, an old fridge they might find, they back it up as their back wall and everything. This is what the homeless cities are going to look like. And tents and stuff, a lot of tents and stuff. And I mean, it's I just consider it a horrible thing that they come along all the time and you got to move, you got to move, you got to move. But in the end, they won't be able to do that because there's going to be so many of them. They're not going to be able to go, you got to move, you got to move. There's just, once they're overwhelmed, once the police presence is completely overwhelmed because there's like 2 million of them over there, what are you going to do? You going to tell them all to move? It's just like too much. In the end, they'll just leave them be. They'll let them do whatever they want, basically. And they'll throw their hands up in the air. And just, and then they might become homeless themselves. The policeman's always telling them, move, you gotta move, you gotta move, for the last 5 years. He might suddenly find he hasn't got a job because they're cutting funding to the police or whatever, And then he's with them. And in the end, there'll be more on that side of the fence than there is on the side of the fence where they got people working. How can the system run this way? It can't. We're heading into everything being unsustainable. Like this stock market's completely unsustainable, completely unhinged with reality. This is the mess they've gotten us into. And it all goes back to when they started this Ponzi scheme back around 1914 with the Fed. They started this Ponzi scheme. We're hitting the end stages of it now, where it's all just kind of the whole system. And they must have knew. When they put it together, they must have said, hey, this is a Ponzi scheme. We're on the Ponzi scheme. Those guys at Jekyll Island. And they said, well, that's okay. We'll all be dead and gone by the time the Ponzi scheme breaks apart. I think the old, well, I can't think of his name right now, Keynes. I think Keynes he said, well, we're all dead anyway. Because I think he knew what the end result of modern monetary theory is. It works kind of like an old farmer trying to lift himself up by the straps that come off of his boots. He grabs the bootstraps. He says, okay, I can pick up 300 pounds. I'm a strong guy, and I only weigh 180 pounds. I should be able to grab my bootstraps and lift really hard and fly. That's the way that taking and giving everybody money, just giving them money and they don't have to work anymore and everybody's going to be rich, is the same kind of logic. It should work if you print up a bunch of money and give it to everybody and then they don't ever have to work again. Nobody has to work because we're all getting money from the government. Everybody should be rich. Doesn't work though, because it's like trying to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. It's the same sort of idea, but it doesn't work. And it never will work. And Keynes, I think, knew it wouldn't work, and that's why he said we're all dead anyway. Anyway, let's move on. Let's take a look here at crude oil today. Crude oil's making its way back up, but, it's heading back up to $40 again. I've told you guys about that $40 mark, that they intend on keeping it there. I said it goes down to 37, it goes back up to 40. It goes up to 42, it comes back down to 40. 40's that baseline. I almost feel like putting crude oil in with my animal pictures again, But we are going to take a look at U.S. Treasuries today real quickly because they are moving a little bit in the upwards direction. 6 basis points up, 4 basis points in the U.S. 10-year. Actually, almost 5 basis points. 0.69 on the U.S. 10-year. So we do have some movement in Treasuries. But I'm going to put in our picture of the day anyway, okay? And this is our picture of the day. How many times have you guys seen an old man looks like that? Seriously, an old man walking down the street, and he actually looks like that. I think he's cute, the monkey anyway, but he looks like an old man to me, And I've seen dozens of old men look just like that walking down the street. Anyway, what was the next thing I wanted to put on here? We wanted to put on the U.S. dollar index today, 93.88. And we're looking at the dollar basically going along sideways with a bit of volatility. The volatility entered in this morning here. Now, let me see. The volatility started at around 9:53 a.m. And it's been up and down now with the volatility, but it's basically just going along straight. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. We'll catch you guys in the very next episode. Bye-bye.